guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review of An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. This is the first book in a YA fantasy series, and it follows two perspectives. The first point of view is Leia, and she finds herself in a situation in which she becomes a slave in Blackcliff Academy, and Blackcliff Academy trains assassins in this society. The second perspective is Elias, and he is an assassin in training in this society, and he's about to graduate, but he's also thinking about fleeing the academy. Through their perspectives, we get the image of a society that's very brutal, that has a lot of political players, and even has a hint of magic. So first off, I went into the story fairly blind. This had a ton of hype this time last year, and I decided to not pick this up until this time this year because I didn't want to deal with all of the hype and everything. I thought I was going to enjoy it, but I still didn't really want to get close to it because of everything that was being talked about, and some people said it was disappointing, and there's a lot of mixed opinions now, and I just didn't want to touch it for a while. So I decided to pick it up later on in the hype train instead of right when it was hitting. I also think going into the story fairly blind is a good way to go, which is why I left my synopsis kind of vague, because I really didn't know anything going in, and I kind of liked it that way. So the first thing I want to talk about is the world building. I really enjoyed the world in here. This is supposed to be based kind of on the Roman Empire, and you can really feel that in this. A lot of times you will have books that will say they're kind of based on Rome, and then they aren't. Red Queen. So this one definitely felt like you were in kind of like a Roman-inspired society with the different like battles that are going on, with all the political stuff going on. It felt like that kind of atmosphere from the very get-go, and I really enjoy that because I do like Roman-inspired culture. I will say that the society was very brutal, so if you have any triggers for rape or sexual assault, definitely be kind of cautious with this one, because rape and sexual assault is pretty prevalent in here for a YA novel, which I was really surprised by, and I don't think it's necessarily unnecessary, but at the same time, I feel like people that are sensitive to it are going to be very put off by this. There is a lot of brutality against women. There is a lot of just rape mentioned offhandedly or just kind of like it's expected. And I do think that the author did a good job of saying that this isn't okay in the way that it was talked about and in the way that her characters reacted to it. So I don't think it was out of line to have that. I think it was a way to show exactly how brutal this society is. But if that's something you don't like in your stories, then I would definitely steer clear of this one. I also am a big fan of desert-based fantasy. So that is a term that I made up. It's not any kind of technical term for fantasy or anything. These are the kinds of stories that have magic that seems very desert-based, so there are magical beings that are like the Jinn or Ifrits or stuff like that, and this has that, which I really enjoyed. The magic element is smaller in this. It definitely weaves in and out, but it's not a main player in this story. This story definitely sets the foundation for a lot of things, magic included, but I like the type of magic that's included in here. Secondly, I want to talk about the characters. I enjoyed both of our main characters. I wasn't a huge fan of Leia at the beginning. She definitely goes through a lot, and there's a lot of character development happening with her. So at the very beginning, she's a very meek, kind of cowardly at times, but I wouldn't quite call it cowardly. It's just, she's almost shy and doesn't quite stick up for herself, and then she has a lot of guilt about that. So I wasn't a huge fan of her at the beginning. Not that I disliked her, she just wasn't my kind of character, but she really grew on me throughout the story when she started to kind of come into her own and kind of have to step up to the plate, so I did enjoy her later on. And also Elias, I enjoyed him as well. He is that kind of like assassin soldier character, and he has a lot going on as far as his backstory and everything that's kind of influencing him and his relationships and stuff. I think I enjoyed him the most, and his kind of friendships and relationships and the things that he was going through, while Leia has this more like rebel kind of thing going on with her. He also has a rebel type thing, but again, it's a different kind of rebel, and I just enjoyed his inner turmoil and things he was going through a lot more than hers throughout the story. But again, I enjoyed both of them. I just enjoyed him a tad bit more. But as far as the side characters, I really enjoyed them a lot also. Elias has a friend who is my favorite character probably in the whole story, and I think she's getting a POV in the next book, which makes me so happy because she's my favorite character. I adore her. I adore their relationship, their friendship, everything that's going on with them, and all the things that this set up for the future books. I just really enjoyed their whole dynamic. And I also enjoyed a lot of the characters that Leia ran into, and some of the side characters there, and some of the other slaves that she runs into and stuff like that. Those friendships were really good as well. So I enjoyed the friendship dynamic a lot in this story. I will say that as far as romance, this is kind of like a love pentagon or something. There's a lot of points. Let me draw this out, just to explain to you exactly what's going on with the love situation here. This is basically the love interest situation. So it's kind of like two love triangles, honestly, but not and because they're kind of connected, but they're not. There's a lot going on love interest wise. It's kind of like two love triangles. So if you're not into love triangles or multiple love interests, you're probably not going to enjoy this because each character kind of has a love triangle. Personally didn't hate that part of the story. I don't typically hate love triangles. Obviously, if they're poorly done, I hate them, but I don't hate them on principle, them just being love triangles, so I didn't mind that, and I did feel that for the most part, the romance aspect of the story was put more on the back burner. It was at times interjected where it's like, is this really necessary? Like, the characters would even be thinking like, why am I thinking about this person? I'm like, yeah, why are you thinking about that person? You have so much more to worry about right now. But overall, the love interest stuff was left more on the sidelines and it wasn't the main focus. But again, if you don't like love triangles at all, or multiple love interests at all, you're not going to enjoy this because it is a main part of the story. I do have my preferences though for these love interests that I really hope happen, but I'm not sure with the end of the story how that's gonna go, but I want them to go a certain way and I'm not sure. So yeah, that's the only part with love triangles is like, I want my ships to work out and they don't always when you have a love triangle and it's There also is a really good villain character in here that I really enjoyed. I wasn't sure going in if they were going to turn out to be three-dimensional, but they end up being, towards the end, have some things kind of shown that showed them as more of a realistic person, because at the beginning, they kind of feel a little like, why are you evil? Just to be evil? But later on, you get a little more, and I think in future books, we're going to get a lot more from that, and kind of figure out what led this person to the road of seriously evil things going on. Now on to the plot. This did take me a little bit to get into. Also, I took a while to read this because I read this for most of May, and I had a lot of stuff going on in May. I went to BEA, so I didn't have a lot of time to read when I was traveling and stuff, and then I got a puppy right when we came home. So I haven't had a ton of time, but once I actually sat down and dedicated the time to read this, this is a really quick read. A lot of stuff goes on. This is a very foundational book though, so a lot of stuff you're kind of building up and you're going to see a lot of stuff in later books, which is why I'm still annoyed about the marketing for this book, because this book when it first came out was marketed as a standalone YA fantasy, and that's why a lot of people bought it. But now reading it, there's no way that this should have ever been marketed as a standalone because it obviously has other books. I mean, it's setting itself up for more. It ends on almost like a cliffhanger-y type thing. So I really kind of hate that they marketed this as a standalone because there's really no way. So this is definitely very foundational. You set up all of the politics that are going on, you set up the different villains, and you set up just all of the relationships and stuff, and I think that the future books are going to be really, really action-packed. But this book at the beginning I felt was a little slow. Again, a lot of stuff was going on, so it wasn't necessarily slow, but in the overall scheme of things, if you compare the first half of the book and the second half of the book, the second half was obviously way faster. So this is definitely more foundational, but I think the next books are going to be really crazy. I'm interested to see more of the magic and everything, and just to see what happens with all of our characters, because we do have kind of a plethora of characters. I'm interested to see what happens to all of them. I hear that if Saba gets her way, there are going to be 4 books in this series, which has me pretty excited because, like I said, there's a lot that is set up with this, and I feel like a trilogy might not be enough, so 4 books would be awesome. So overall, I gave An Ember in the Ashes 4 out of 5 stars. I am not going to be doing a discussion video on this because I do have this sequel that I picked up at BEA, so I think I'm going to do a discussion after I read that one, so I kind of have more to discuss since this book is so foundational that I feel like I don't have a ton to discuss besides ship stuff, and while ship stuff is very important, I also just don't feel like doing a whole discussion video on ship stuff with a book like this. So after I read the second book, which will hopefully be no later than August, I will be doing a full discussion on the first 2 books in the series. So comment down below and let me know what you thought of An Ember in the Ashes. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!